Welcome to the Startup Leader Show, where we learn lessons from leading startup founders and executives. I'm your host, Lisa Dreher. I'm really excited to introduce our guest for today, Junaid Mian. He is with Space VC, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Lisa.
Absolutely. Maybe you can start by just giving us a little bit of background on yourself and Space VC.
Sure. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'll keep it very short and simple. Pharmacist turned floor trader, turned angel investor, turned emerging manager at Space VC. So Space VC is the world's first VC firm focused on space technology and human longevity. You can visit our website for more details as to why, but I can pretty much tell you, without getting too deep into it, that we believe that space will drive longevity, and longevity is needed for space. And because those two will drive each other, Space VC was formed to drive that positive feedback loop, which should push humanity forward for centuries and probably forever.
Wow. So what are some of the trends that you're really watching right now related to those topics?
Well, in space, it's quite obvious, but when we started this back in 2019, it wasn't so obvious. We kind of saw some of it already. So this is before the Dragon launch with the human launch there back in May of 2020. It was before that. We didn't know about the launch, but we kind of knew that that was going that way. Human spaceflight was coming back. You can see what Branson did, and then Jeff Bezos following up with that. A lot of the things wouldn't have been possible even a few years ago. So if you go back to say December 21st of 2015, when that Falcon rocket came back to Earth, the SpaceX rocket, that was a pivotal moment because it had never been done before. And if you can see the progress from that date till now, right, it's quite exponential. You couldn't have done that if it had been 2010 to 2015. You wouldn't have saw that. But in 2015, there's a lot of convergent technologies that just came to be at that point that allowed that to happen. So we're coming on the 6-year anniversary of that moment, and we've come a long way. And so that's a trend that we're seeing, that more and more of the space infrastructure that's going to allow this, interplanetary economy to exist is starting to be built out right now. And on the longevity side, you also see a lot of key clinical trials going on that weren't even possible, that are, being done now, but a lot of them are also being crowdfunded. And that means the people that are funding them, which is, people like you and I, they believe in it. That's why they're putting their money on it. And they really want what those trials will hopefully show. So you can see that's happening as well. And the SPAC activity with both of those verticals is also happening, which would never happen. If you look into a SPAC and how it's formed, there has to be something credible that's going to pay off soon for the SPAC to be profitable. So there wouldn't be SPAC activity in both of these verticals if they weren't going to be. And, it just happens to be right place at the right time. Kind of saw this in 2019. Wouldn't say saw everything. That's not possible. But the inklings of it were there. And we decided, since nobody's doing them together, we should do it.
Yeah. Well, great. It's really exciting. And I think you're right. I mean, there's just so much happening, and a lot of just innovations and commercialization of space, and all of these things are kind of converging all at the same time. So it is a really exciting time to kind of watch what's happening and participate.
Exactly. We couldn't do that before, but now we can participate.
Yeah, exactly. So we invited you here today to talk a little bit about your business success and how you've realized that over the years. And I want to just start by asking you, what have been some of the biggest keys to your business success so far?
Well, I think when we started out, because of what we were doing, a lot of it sounded like science fiction, when in fact it was becoming science fact. And a lot of things that you may think are quite obvious and easy to understand, when you're dealing with other investors and other people, it's not always the case. So you have to find a way to keep things as simple as possible, as complex as they may be, because the human mind can only absorb so much. And especially in this day where we're being inundated by so much stuff all over the place, you need that focus, but most people don't have it. But people, a lot of people that we're talking to are very busy, so they need to get it right away. So whatever you're doing, it's got to be simplified to the point. It's almost like a reductionist, philosophy. You got to reduce to the point where you can't reduce no more. And those are lessons that are learned the hard way. But I would say whatever you're doing, you should be able to put it in 1 or 2 sentences.
Yeah, that's really good advice. What has been the most valuable business lesson that you've learned over the last several years, especially as it relates to starting Space VC?
I think whatever you're going to do, you should really think about it deeply. Okay? Really think about it. And then seek out experts that might know a little bit more about you in terms of like how to actually do it, in terms of the technicals involved. And when you finally get it, then just act on it. But that initial phase can save you a lot of headaches and a lot of money. So I think, don't always think that if I don't do something right now, someone's going to beat me to it. It's not always the case. You don't know how long they've been thinking about it. So it looks like they just woke up today and started doing something. They could have been at it for a while before they did it. So take your time, make sure you know what you're doing, and then go do it. It's kind of the same philosophy as Blue Origin, each step ferociously, right? So I think it's a good philosophy to adopt.
Yeah, absolutely. So knowing what you know now, it being, I guess, 2021, it's been a couple of years since you started Space VC. Is there anything, a piece of business advice you would have given yourself when you first started out?
I would have paid some consultants to do a lot of the research and legwork, so I could have just done the right thing from the day one.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get cheap when we shouldn't be, and it ends up costing you a lot more. So that whole adage of penny wise, pound foolish, it applies just about everywhere. So if you really want to do something, pay the experts to get the research done, and then again, like I said, hit that iron hard.
Sure. One of the things that we hear from a lot of the founders that we work with and a lot of the business people that we talk to is that businesses have this tendency to hit plateaus at different points, and getting past those plateaus can be really challenging. Have you experienced that? And if so, what have you done to kind of get past those points and grow?
Yeah, those plateaus are very painful. I think in the beginning, when you get involved with something, right, you have to know that it has a long trajectory ahead, right? So space and longevity can literally go on forever. But the way you're going about doing it, we did hit some hurdles, and it took some painful reflection to know that it's time to do something else. And it's every case is different. But I think when you know it's time to do it, you got to do it. As much as you don't want to do it or you don't feel like doing it. But there comes a point where it's kind of like working out, right? When you hit the plateau, but if you want to break through, you're going to have to do a couple of tweaks. And some of those tweaks might mean a lot more, weight on that bar, and you're dreading it, right? But once you go through it, you're kind of like, why didn't I do this earlier? And so it's kind of like you have to know the plateau. You got to know when you get there, and you know that what you're going to have to do to break through might be somewhat painful, but you're just going to have to do it.
Sure. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about how Space VC works. Are you working primarily with accredited investors, or are you a crowdfunding kind of platform, or some combination of both? How does it work?
Well, it's primarily accredited investors.
Mm-hmm.
Just based on what we're doing, it has to be that way at this point. We have some other ideas down the line, but it's going to be one step at a time.
Sure.
We want to eventually open it up to anybody that wants to. That's the whole thing, is whatever we do, the eventual goal is to democratize it so that it has access to everybody. So the only thing getting in the way is basically whether you want to or not that you can't.
Right.
And, longevity is for everybody, and so is space. And opening that up, as you can see with Branson and Bezos and Musk, the whole point is so that everybody can. But in the beginning, it's like anything, right? It takes a little while. But I think these two things are going to happen faster and faster just because the underlying fundamental technologies are there to make them that way. And so my advice is just to do the right thing, stay healthy, stay strong, stay positive, because there's a lot around the corner and you want to be around for that.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, it's basic stuff like that. You know, just don't do anything stupid in the meantime, because there's a lot of good stuff down the pipe for everybody. Be around for it.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. What are there some of the companies that the Space VC has supported that you can talk about, or is there like are there any investments that you can talk about right now?
Sure. On the space side, it's primarily focused on the infrastructure of space, right? So it could be space to Earth or space to space. And so these are picks and shovels types of companies that you need to build that infrastructure out so that you can do all the things that you want to do in space. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at. The companies are mostly focused on that. And on the longevity side, we're looking at diagnostics. We're also looking at therapeutics, both direct to consumer and prescription, along with digital health. And these are all based on longevity. So when we talk about longevity, we're talking about living healthier for longer, right? So basically, it's having the body of say a 60-year-old, but the internals of say a 40-year-old, right? Hopefully, we're looking at the skin too. But overall, if you can get the body at a healthier state, odds are you're going to live a lot longer. But there's going to come a point where you're going to hit that plateau. And so to get above that, we are also looking at regenerative medicine. So when I talk about that, I'm looking at stem cells. We're also looking at artificial organs and tissue engineering in terms of bioprinting organs and so forth. So that'll push the human lifespan a lot further, along with the quality of life. And so when I'm talking about human lifespan, I'm talking about quality of life, not just length of life. We can already do that. And I've already lived in that world where I've seen people, live for a long time on a machine, but that's not life.
No.
A good life.
Right.
So that's what we're looking at. Companies that are looking at those little niches that I mentioned in terms of like therapeutics, diagnostics, and digital health, along with the regenerative side.
Got it. So based on all of these companies that you've been working with and looking at, if you could make one prediction about the future of space and longevity, what would that prediction be?
My prediction would be, and I'd even put a time on it. I would say by 2040, we could probably put, the average human lifespan to about 100. And there will be a lot of activity in space in terms of, instead of people flying across to work, they'll be going up to work. And the more and more people go up to work to space, and that's going to be, regular folks, provided you're healthy enough to do it, right? Also, one thing I didn't mention earlier is that in space, you age rapidly too. So it's the perfect platform to understand the aging process, which is a reason why we also put these two verticals together. So to understand the mechanisms of aging, space is a great platform for that. So as more and more people go up, right, astronauts are almost like a perfect specimen. And in some ways, that's not the rest of us, right? So as more and more ordinary folks go up, we'll understand the process, which directly benefits everybody on Earth. And so as more and more data comes available, we'll learn more and more with those direct benefits flowing back to Earth. At the end of the day, space is more about Earth than it is about space. It always has been. We're having this call right now because we decided to go to space, right? Take that for granted. But, when these things are taken for granted is when they're successful. And so I see in like by 2040, a lot of this stuff is going to happen. And we don't even know how we got there. Kind of like the internet, right? We thought we've always had it, right? We've always had Google Maps. But you and I both know, and we lived in a time when there was none of that. We had that Rand McNally map, okay? Yeah. I still have it, by the way, as a backup.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I still do. You never know. I'm in some spots where, that triangle on my phone shows up and I know I have no signal. So I got to break out that map. But like I said, those are my predictions. I think, like I said, I think all this stuff is going to be commonplace in less than 20 years.
Yeah. Well, like I said, exciting time for us all. I really want to thank you so much, Junaid, for making time to speak with us today. And hopefully you'll come back and chat with us again in the future.
My pleasure, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us.